Shut up and sit down.
I am a radical libertarian.
And we don't want the government to do a damn thing.
The current state of politics is unsustainable, politically, economically.
You deserve better.
It is about supporting, platforming, and assisting the people who are out here actually doing the fight.
You just take an issue that's important to you and do something.
There you go.
You are part of that declaration against tyranny.
Because no one brings tear gas to a gunfight.
This conversation gives me a little more hope for the future.
The one, the only.
Fight for liberty.
This is the cherry on top.
This is FSM.
Hello, fighters. Welcome back to Fight for Liberty Live. I'm your host, David Fite, here to get you fired up about the men and women out here making the world a freer and better place through politics, activism, business, and more. We are here live on Free Speech Media Network. If you are watching this on YouTube, if it's live, we're just to YouTube tonight. But if you're watching the replay on YouTube or something like that, go on over to Rumble. They pay us a little bit better. They keep our stuff up longer. They're less likely to deplatform us. So go on over. If you're watching this replay, watch it on Rumble. The link is in the description to all of the other different networks. Tonight, I am joined by a hilarious comic from the Great White North. But first, we're going to get a quick word from our sponsors. First up, you know them, you love them. Blood of Tyrants Wine, the official spirit of 1776. If you're looking for a nice night in while also sipping on the blood of your enemies and taking down the tyrannical state, look no further than Blood of Tyrants Wine. You can choose between a Merlot or Pinot Grigio, both distributed by activists you know and love. Bloodoftyrants.wine is the place to go. And if you go on over there and use promo code FSM, you'll get 10% off your first order and help support the show and the network and other people you like. And if you're needing a little bit more energy to get out there and fight the state, they just put out a new energy tea. It's got about a little over 100 milligrams of caffeine per can, so a little bit more than a coffee, a little less than your normal energy drink to kind of give you that extra boost you need in the morning. So go on over bloodoftyrants.wine to check all of that out. We've also got our newest sponsor, MyArkit. If you don't just save your pictures where they are at risk of being censored, deleted, or lost. MyArkit gives you security and privacy at a great price while telling the whole story in your own voice and writing. Unlike a typical cloud backup where you just dump all of your random pictures, MyArkit has you upload one full memory at a time. A picture or short video post with text and or audio captions create a timeline that makes going back through your memories an easy and pleasant experience for you and your loved ones. Sign up today for a 30-day free trial to see what the craze is all about. No payment necessary. This is actually just a true free trial. So go on over to myarkit.com. And again, if you use promo code FSM, you're going to get 10% off your purchase. You can sign up for a personal account to save your life forever, or if you have an important event coming up, you can create an event account, which will let attendees add photos and videos for you and other admins to go through later and create a beautiful digital album for your upcoming wedding, convention, graduation, or shower. Again, this is all over at myarkit.com, and use promo code FSM to save 10% when you sign up. Without further ado, joining the fight tonight, we have co-host of the Fight Stories podcast, co-founder of Decentral Comedy, and stand-up comedian, Mr. Tyler Morrison. Welcome to the show, good sir. Oh man, I muted myself on Zoom. You didn't hear that at all.
No, I was waiting for
my bad.
Waiting for the counting.
I forgot that I muted myself on Zoom during the intro, so you didn't.
Did they hear you at all in the intro?
They could hear me, definitely. I was just muted to you. Tyler, welcome to the show.
Hey, yeah, no problem. It's nice to be here at this rinky-dink Mickey Mouse Dog and Pony Act.
Man, it is just gonna be a technological difficulties day, I guess. It was at work all day, but hopefully that was the end of it for the show. So I always like to start off with a little bit of a testimonial question. So I'm curious, when did you realize you were funny?
I mean, I think early on it was other people realized I was a little different with my sense of humor when I was a kid. So I think a third grade teacher was like called my parents aside and basically told them your kid's a little off. Some of the stuff that he's writing and drawing in class is like, it's a little bit darker but it is funny. So they kind of identified that early, and I was always into writing, and I'd write. I loved David Letterman when I was a kid. I used to write my own like David Letterman top 10 lists, and I thought that was so funny, and I'd like I figured out joke structure early on, and then from there it was just roasting my friends. And Adam Sandler came along, and I heard his albums, What the Hell Happened to Me, and They're All Gonna Laugh at You, and those were total game changers as a kid, being like in seventh grade, and just hearing the some of the stuff he was doing. Those are classic albums. The album, everyone has that comedy album that you don't want your parents to hear, and you listen to it with your friends. It's almost like contraband. Those albums were like that for me when I was a kid. And then as I got a bit older, I gravitated into stand-up comedy, watching Andrew Dice Clay, Eddie Murphy. Those are huge for me.
Oh yeah.
Eddie Murphy Raw and Dice Clay. One Night Guaranteed to Offend, I think it was called.
Okay.
The one from Philadelphia, even before The Dice Man Cometh. And those are great, both of those. I love everything. I love Dice Clay. He was a menace.
It's funny you mentioned the contraband kind of thing, because I had a very similar feeling when I first got my first couple of like stand-up albums on my MP3 player. But it's funny because my dad's the reason that they were there. I let him borrow it for he went on like a work trip, and so I let him borrow it on the condition that he would put a bunch of music on it and then leave it there, because he was the only one with LimeWire on his computer. We weren't allowed to give our computers aids. And so he forgot to take off some of the stuff that he meant to. And so there was a few music albums on there that he definitely didn't mean for 9-year-old me to find. But then there was also Eddie Murphy's Delirious, a couple of Ron White albums, and a bunch of Royal Canadian Air Farce, which I had never heard of before. And I was just sitting there listening to, that's how I learned what the word faggot actually meant. That it meant that it was a slang term for that was Eddie Murphy. And I was in third grade and sheltered kid. So I'm going around teaching my kids or my friends swear words and stuff that my parents are like, where the did you hear that? I'm like,
that's hilarious.
The shit dad left on my MP3 player. Not my fault.
So you found these albums on there, and Royal Canadian Air Farce is an interesting choice. Is your dad Canadian by chance? Does he?
Nope.
Oh, really?
He's just a fan.
It's a very Canadian show, but they were funny back in the day, and but super. They're a little bit more. They're on the cleaner side. I'm from Canada, so I live up north of Toronto. So that's the we grew up with that on CBC every week. You'd see the Air Farce, and they were a staple in Canada. But you don't hear that you don't hear very many Americans knowing what Royal Canadian Air Farce is. So I think that's kind of cool. That's
yeah. I don't know if just because my parents are from Buffalo, so it's not that far. I wonder if that was just one of the things that kind of just barely made it over the border. But yeah,
they might have got CBC in Buffalo. Yeah,
that's true.
Right, because it's pretty close to Toronto.
Yeah. But yeah, that was actually one of the things that got me into kind of that idea of sketch comedy was their stuff that my dad originally showed me, because I was watching that stuff long before I was watching SNL or anything American in that area, because I wasn't allowed to watch SNL growing up, where you were saying Royal Canadian Air Farce a little bit on the cleaner side. They're not and it's also not quite pop culture-y, where I wouldn't have gotten it SNL, because I was still fairly sheltered, and so I wouldn't have gotten all these Janet Jackson jokes or something like that, because I'm just no idea what's going on here.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, when I got into comedy, it was a really good time. I mean, Norm Macdonald was the anchor on Weekend Update. So that like all these things were kind of happening, and Canadians were very, very successful at the time in comedy. With like Tom Green was blowing up, when I was in high school. So you see these guys, and it's not too far removed from, they're not too far removed from where I'm from. They came up in the same kind of scenes that, that I ended up, and I still travel in and do comedy. And so it's kind of cool, especially at that time. I mean, Canadians right now are doing very well in comedy too. But as a kid, to see, wow, this guy's he's from not too far away from me, and he's killing it in America. That's an inspirational thing to to be able to witness.
Yeah, I feel like you guys just build up that, like, because there's that trope of like a hard life makes a better comedian, and I think there's something about like Canadian and Australian comics specifically that I just personally fucking love, and I think there's just something about like when you live through that much cold, you just kind of have to build up that, like, that's the only thing.
Or heat in Australia.
Yeah. Yeah. Either way, it's just like when you're just fucked by the elements for long enough, you have to figure out a way to get around it, and that's comedy.
Yeah, you have to get through those months. It gets pretty cold up here for sure.
yeah.
I mean, it's not igloos where I live, but it is pretty fucking cold.
Yeah, I'm trying to get I've lived so close to Canada my entire life. I've been trying to get south, and every time I move south, it lasts for like less than a year, and by the next winter, I'm back up here in the blizzards. Like,
I mean, Buffalo, yeah, you get it in Buffalo. It's not much different. Where you live, you're not too far from where I am. I mean, like, I'm 2 hours north of Toronto. We're in a snow belt, so we get more snow than Toronto does. But I mean, yeah, Buffalo is notorious for blizzards.
Yeah, I'm
just watch a football game.
Right. I've been to a few Bills games, and always later on in the season, so like right about now, and it was brutal. It was like actually both times it was like birthday present tickets. My birthday's in late December, so it's like I don't want, no, please don't make me do this. So what inspired you to actually turn the comedy into a career and make it a life?
Yeah, again, it was another one of my teachers in school. He wrote on one of my report cards that like one day I should be writing for the Tonight Show, and I was like, oh, you can do this for a living. That's kind of cool. And so when I saw that kind of just jolted me, and I started kind of gearing myself towards figuring out what I want to do. And in Canada, in Toronto, there's actually a college course, which is like, it's called the Humber College Comedy Program, and you can go there, and it's a whole bunch of people who want to do comedy, and it turns out a whole bunch of wicked comics. It's sort of like a vacuum of creative people who, you go and they have all different, like, acting, sketch comedy, writing for TV, all these different courses. They do have a stand-up course, but I mean, it was more beneficial to me to learn about the business of stand-up comedy, because it's like a weird career if you're coming from the outside. Like, how do you even get into that? Yeah. And you kind of do find out how to do that. Within a week, I was performing at the Yuck Yucks Comedy Club in Toronto in front of 300 people when I was 18.
Wow.
Just the first time I ever did stand-up was like sold out at the biggest comedy club in the country. And it was insane. So to get to do that, get thrown right into the fire. And some of the comedians that have come out of this program you'd probably be familiar with some of them. I don't know if you've seen Steph Tolev, but she's getting really popular right now. She opens for Bill Burr, was just in his movie, the Old Dads movie on Netflix.
Okay.
And then Nathan Fielder from Nathan For You on Comedy Central. I mean, these are some of the comics that came out of that program. They're a year after me or 2 years after, but yeah, it's just a cool place for. I found it was good for someone who didn't live in the city, because I grew up in a small town, to move to the city, and then all of a sudden you're around all these like-minded people that are also wanting to be in your field. You find, I'm friends with like some of these people still to this day.
Nice.
It was a cool kind of like X-Men school for comedy.
That's really
which
cool.
is just a bunch of meatheads.
That's really awesome because yeah, it's always been something that I've seen as kind of a weird hurdle to jump, like you mentioned, of just how do you even start? Like where do you go? Do you just like start calling up comedy clubs like, hey, I promise I'm funny? Like
Yeah, there's usually open mics at open mic comedy shows. If you look in your local guides, they usually get listed. And then usually the comedy club, if it's any good, they usually have an open mic night, amateur night, which is a good way to get on. But they're, the clubs, it's usually so competitive to get on the open mic night that you got to try and find the other open mics in the city at, little bars and maybe like smaller clubs and stuff like that to just to get the stage time that you're going to need when you start out. When you start out, you have to go on stage hundreds of times just to even get comfortable, to build that base of just finding who you are on stage and being just, you got to learn how to get laughs first, and then you can learn how to get the laughs you want to get, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
If you just have to know that you're gonna get laughs the entire time, and then you can start figuring out, okay, that's kind of a hacky joke. That was just a placeholder. I'm gonna write something that's more true to me here, and then you can start moving in the pieces of who you are.
Mm-hmm. Did you do a lot of that? That just a trope that I've seen just watching stuff is like that kind of those free applause where you're just like, how's everybody doing tonight, kind of stuff, and it's just kind of thrown in there to get the energy back up when you're not doing great.
You need to do that still. Like, I've been doing this 20 years. You still gotta manufacture your own energy sometimes. If the crowd's not into your openers or whatever, like sometimes you just gotta like throw out a little line. But it is funny when you see guys having to do it 3-4 times just to get them going, especially if their jokes are sucking. I love seeing that. I love when it happens to me. I mean, well, Joe Coy could have used some of that the other night at the Golden Globes.
I heard.
Poor Joe had a tough go. I mean, I always thought Joe Coy was Middle Eastern until I saw him, how shitty he was at wearing a bomb the other night. He threw his writers under the bus so fucking fast. That was sad.
Oh my God.
It's one thing, like, listen, I got no problem with Joe Coy. I never even met him personally or anything like that, and he's a funny comic and super successful. And he's got more fans than I do for now. But but what happened was, like, that's a tough crowd to do. So I empathize with anyone in that position. He had the 10-day. He did it on short notice. I think he found out 10 days before he's doing this gig. And that is a high pressure gig. And we know it's high pressure because we see the fallout from it not going well. And when Ricky Gervais does it, there's backlash and everyone's talking shit about him. But we know that it's funny because he fucking killed. It's not that he killed in that room. He killed with us at home because we know how stuck up that room is. And when you get a comedian who's more of like a crowd pleaser type comic, who's more friendly and warm, like a Joe Coy typically is in his stand-up, you have a comic like that going up there with those people. When they bomb, they can't. It's not like they're doing jokes that are actually offensive. So it's not like, oh, he just fucking ripped them and they're offended. It's like, oh, the jokes weren't good and no one was laughing. Yeah. And the jokes weren't that bad, but there's a couple softies in there, and it's reflected. If you can, if you're gonna take these fuckers out, take them out. And if you're gonna pander to them and you bomb, that's a bigger risk to me. Like, it's way easier to say to do the Ricky Gervais way, which is you just burn the place to the fucking ground and who gives a shit.
Yeah.
And Ricky Gervais isn't losing a wink of sleep over that. Whereas I'm sure Joe Coy's team is in damage control and trying to figure out how to spin this. But like, for me, the only thing that I problem I had with it was how quickly he started blaming the writers for the jokes. You hired them, you told them, you're the guy, take the hit. Yeah. Like, don't fucking bury these guys. They work their ass off for you, like, come on. be a fucking G. You've bombed before. And maybe he's just it's been a long time since he's bombed because he does have a very supportive fan base. When your fans love you, all of a sudden you're not in the. I don't know how much he's working these open mics. Like, so you got to bomb to know that you're to figure out how to make your shit good. So you gotta be. It's tough when they get to that level, I think. So I don't want to judge too harshly, but up there when he was on there, this is what I call. You're bombing in stand-up comedy when you have one bead of sweat roll right down the middle of your back, down your ass crack. That's God letting you know you are bombing. Joe Coy definitely felt the tear of the clown. That's I call it the tear of the clown.
So I've never done stand-up, but I've done enough public speaking to know. Damn.
I felt the tear of the clown many a times, Joe. So I'm not judging you, buddy. I really wish him the best, and there's some things that, like, obviously, I didn't think his writers deserve that, but hey, it's a pressure cooker situation, and if you're in the moment, like, you're grabbing onto any fucking life raft.
Yeah,
it's what. When you see in a cartoon or movie when they're falling off a cliff and they grab for that fucking weakest branch and they're going down. That was like watching that whole set, and that it's happened to me. So I bombed in front of a group of the richest jewelers in Canada, these rich jewelers, and they fucking hated me, and and I felt the tear of the clown. And it was just, I knew this isn't going good. And then at the end of the set, I come walking off, and there's this one guy that was loving the whole fucking show. I like that guy. He was into it.
There you go.
He comes up, he goes, "Man, that was actually really good. You should have seen last year. They made Rich Little's brother cry." And like Rich Little, if you don't know who he is, he's like this famous impressionist, right? But he's a Canadian. So that's probably why his brother's doing. I never even knew he had a brother or that he did comedy. I've never heard of this guy, but Rich Little's like a famous, like from like the old school days in Vegas and like probably around like the Rat Pack and all that shit. But they didn't get. They're the richest dudes in Canada. They can't get. Is Rich Little dead? I don't know.
I don't know.
I think he's still alive. They could have probably got Rich Little, but they're too cheap. They got his fucking brother, and then they booed him off stage and made him cry. So that's what they're telling me, and they're like pretty proud of it. But they didn't make me cry.
There you go. God damn that. Yeah, I couldn't imagine actually getting booed off stage. Like I've had really, really dicey public speaking stuff. So one of the things I love about this shit is that like there's people watching, but I can't see them. And at least not in real time. I can see the shit you guys put in the comments, but it's a whole different experience compared to actually like being on a stage looking at people. But yeah, I couldn't imagine actually having to just like turn around and walk away. That would actually break me. I think I have way too fragile an ego for that shit.
I've never been booed off stage before, but I've definitely been booed by like pockets of people that hate me. I mean, if you watch my stand-up special, it's on YouTube. It's called Too Soon. There's people in that crowd that hate my guts. I mean, I think I walked over 30 people during the recording of the special, but there was people that were they're a little bit vocal. And
yeah, I noticed that watching it, you kind of had to win the room back from the beginning. That you came out strong on the like kind of dark, dicey humor side, and the room was not with it at the beginning, and you kind of had to win them throughout the special. They
didn't know what it was yet.
Yeah. It was kind of, I don't know, as like just a viewer, like a spectator, it was kind of interesting to actually see that, because I feel like some comedians would just like re-record the special or something like that, like they wouldn't
that money.
Fair enough, but I don't know, I feel like you just don't see that kind of stuff very often. It's rare for the comedian to actually show you booze on a special or something like that and really actually see that dynamic and get to watch you I don't know. To me, it was more fun to watch you win a room over than it is to watch a room that already likes you just clap for you for an hour.
That's right. It wasn't a bunch of trained seals at fucking SeaWorld just
Right.
clapping for you. Yeah, it was for sure. There was, I'd say like the split was like 60% were in my favor, but there was a good 40% that didn't like me. And then I walked a good portion of those people that didn't like me. So then it, no, I didn't really win them over. It's just I walked the people that hated me. The percentage swung back. But no, it was definitely one of those things where when you record a special, and you're not like, it's not with like a production company, like this was just like straight up at a club. It was the Yuck Yucks Club in Toronto where I started it. It was like kind of cool to do it there. And it's like normally the Saturday early show is like the best show of the weekend. It's pure murder wall to wall. And so you record Saturday because you get 2 shows. So that's like your least expensive, you're going to get 2 cracks at it. And that's usually all you need. Mm-hmm. And Friday night is usually the crowd's a little bit more tired because they just got off work. It's usually stuff like that, and it's just not the same energy as a Saturday early show where they've got a little bit of rest and they're ready to go. It's their big night out. But Friday ended up being like the wall-to-wall kill, and we weren't recording.
Oh man!
And then Saturday early show became that, and so I'm like, okay, at least I got the late show, but the security guards were like so thrown off by what happened on that early show that they're just like reprimanding people on the way in the door for the late show. Don't fuck around. So they're just sitting on their hands. Like the late show was shit. But I think there was like a couple bits that got interrupted on the early show that we didn't cut much. Like we used the early show for I'd say 80% of what the special is, but there's a couple bits that I really wanted on there. Because when you do a special, you can also make it an album, and that album can play on Sirius XM, and you make good money on the Sirius XM stuff. So I'm like, I really wanted this one bit because I'm like, I know it's gonna do great on Sirius, so this is gonna pay for the fucking special. Nice. And that's when this old guy fucking interrupted on the early show. He's like yelling at me, and like that didn't get in the special because it was kind of an exchange that went nowhere. So the second part of the special was me regrouping and resetting what happened there. But if you watch to the end, and this is a spoiler alert, but I don't think anyone's gonna give a shit but if you watch to the end, you gotta watch for it. When I come off stage, the old man in the crowd that I had you can see him in the show. He fucking hates me the whole show. He's sitting front row. This old guy with glasses. When I come off stage, he starts yelling at me, like talking some shit. So I blow him a kiss like a bad guy wrestler because I'm like, this is gonna ignite this old prick. And I just keep walking. I don't even look back. I just keep walking. I go to the green room and have a beer and just chill because this is the first show. But my director of the special, who was editing it, Tyler Shazma, when he was editing it, he sees at the end what happened, and he goes, "Holy shit, the old man flipped you off." So if you watch the very end of the special, I blow the kiss to the old man like this bad guy, like a heel wrestler, and then he gives me the middle finger, and we zoom in on the finger and freeze frame, and that's how the special ends. And I think that sort of sums up the entire experience of what that night was.
That's amazing.
So he wanted to fight me after, but I wasn't. I'm not gonna rinse an old man. Yeah, a little bit of respect,
right? God damn.
I would have fucked him up though.
So yeah, it's like I don't want to fight you, but if you make me fight you, I'm gonna win. I'm gonna lose to an old man. That's the thing. I don't want to fight an old man, but I want to lose to an old man even less.
It wasn't an old man where it's like you gotta watch him. He's got old man strength. Like I would have Don Zimmered this motherfucker. Just grab him by the head. It wouldn't have went good. There's old dudes who'll fuck me up, but
right.
Not this guy. Not this old queef.
So you already kind of answered my next question, because I was going to talk about the special next and ask where you did it and why, but that answer's already pretty much there.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely, guys, check out Too Soon. Came out December 23rd of 22. It's a great fucking show, by the way, dude. I laughed my fucking ass off.
Thank you. I got a new special coming out. It should be coming out this month.
Nice.
Yeah, it's called Pimp Daddy.
All right.
And we recorded it. We recorded it last year on New Year's Eve. It took a little while to like get the post production done. There's a little bit of bullshit on the back end, but we got it ready to rock. And it's I'm just putting together a promo trailer for it. So once the trailer's done, Pimp Daddy's gonna drop, and I think it's another nice showcase of the type of comedy that I do. This one's in a theater. It's not the same as Too Soon. Like the crowd, I think they like me.
Well,
It wasn't. There wasn't the tension. There wasn't the tension of Too Soon. So, but it should be fun. And
New
then
Year's
I'm
Eve
going to be
is
doing
an interesting choice to record the special. Was that just kind of out of convenience, or was there a reason behind that?
You know what? It's an easy night, I find, to get people out. It's a night where people go out to comedy. They're looking for something to do. It's usually like if you do the show early enough, it's like a thing. They grab dinner, go to a show, then they go to their party after. It's a good makes for a good full night of entertainment, and it was it's easy for us to pull together. I shot it up here where I live in my hometown. Actually, there's a beautiful theater like a block away from me, and it just kind of worked out that we did it there. And yeah, I'm looking forward to people seeing it. I tell a story from when I went to Skankfest in Las Vegas.
Oh shit.
Yeah, I'll tell you the fucking story on here if you want.
Well, we'll let's not ruin any of the special.
Okay,
If
okay.
you want, I'll have you back on later.
Okay.
I was actually supposed to be there this year. I ended up not making it down there, but I'm definitely gonna be at Skankfest this year. That's on
It's a
the
good time.
priorities list.
Yeah, I went. This was in 2022 when I went, but it was great. Las Vegas is the way they have it set up is really cool. Like the theaters are all in, it's all in the same little complex. So it's you walk from one room to the other, and there's shows going on everywhere. It's a good hangout, and Lewis and his crew do a really good job putting that together. So
hell yeah,
I love it.
I've been trying to get Lewis on the show to talk about it. I've had Dave Smith on a few times now, and we've talked. I actually had him on just before Skankfest this year to kind of like promote it and stuff. But I'm badgering Lewis because I'm like, I want Lewis. I want the back end. I want to know how you actually put this shit together and like get into the nitty gritty stuff that only Lewis can answer.
You gotta get Lewis on. Yeah, he's a fucking menace.
Also, he's just fucking hilarious. Yeah, and seems like a great guy. I love Legion of Skanks. Like it's a great show.
Yeah. And Dave and Jay, they're fucking gems.
Oh yeah, I was one of the I found Dave through politics, and then found his stand up stuff like years later.
Okay.
And so I just started actually watching Legion of Skanks this year. I knew what it was, kind of was like, oh yeah, it's like a comedy podcast, so it seems interesting. But I'm way more into the more like this style, or like a Joe Rogan, where it's more of kind of all over the place interviews kind of thing. I don't watch the same guests every week style shows, or at least I didn't. This year I kind of started watching that, and Mark Norman and Joe List's show, and a couple of other podcasts like that.
Those guys are good. They're good dudes. I love those guys.
Mark Norman is the top of my list of comedians I want to meet in person. He seems so cool.
Yeah, he's how to say it, off stage he's just as like he is on stage. He's just a really fun dude. I love Mark. He's a cool guy. I got to open for him a couple times in Toronto, and just a gem. And Joe List too. Joe List is one of the, I think Joe's getting bigger, and a couple of those guys are really going to arenas. It's wild to see. it's wild to see the level of popularity that's starting to happen around some of these comics. It used to be that, like, you know, only like a couple dudes are going to be doing arenas. I feel like there's going to be more. It just seems like there's going to be a bigger pool of comics that make it to that next level, which is, you know, it's a rarefied air.
Yeah.
I mean, Andrew Schultz is selling out Madison Square Garden twice. He just sold out in Toronto. The Scotiabank Arena back to back. It was insane. It was so cool. And so, like, you know, Shane Gillis is going to be, he's going to be packing arenas if he isn't already starting to. I mean, it's pretty great, the popularity that's happening around comedy right now.
Yeah, I hate the concept of like success or fame being like a finite resource that you like. There's only so much that to go around. But I feel like when you close when you like narrow the search down to each individual like genre of fame, it actually kind of does become that, because there's only so many people that like comedy at a time to really like give that out, or like rock and roll. You know, there's only so much fan base there, but that can change, right? And like that changed with rock, and that's changing now with comedy, of like that finite resource is just expanding huge right now, to where, like you're saying, like 20, 30 years ago, there was max like 10 people that could sell out arenas at once. Now you've got 30, 40 comedians that are all almost at that level. It's awesome.
There's so many more ways to find them now, I think, whereas before it was like a very traditional way and there's only so many avenues, right? So you had to get on Saturday Night Live, or you had to be on The Tonight Show, or those things to start getting the lift ticket to fame. And then, you know, what you get into movies and stuff, I guess. I mean, how many guys were selling out arenas before they were movie stars? I mean, Dice Clay did it before he was a movie star. That's, I think, Steve Martin before he was a movie star. Maybe. No, I don't know. I don't know if he was in movies before he was like doing the big arenas. I mean, he walked away from it because of the big arenas, I think. Murphy was all kind of in tandem with Saturday Night Live, but he was so young. It's like his is the most, I'd say, like the rarest case where like you're that young and that good.
Yeah.
Fully formed out of the gate. It's pretty cool. But now to see, like, yeah, there's just more opportunities for these people to find fans, and for the comics to find fans. You can have a huge podcast, or you can be big on TikTok or YouTube or whatever.
Yeah.
There's people we don't even know who the fuck they are, and they're famous. Back then, when someone was famous, everyone knew them.
Yeah.
Because there's only so many.
It is wild to be able to like find a new comic that I've never heard of before and look them up on Twitter, and they've got 275,000 followers, and it's like
think about how many people discovered Joe Coy this week, and we're just so excited.
Yeah, and it's funny because you mentioned SNL as being like one of the only launch pads. Now it's almost a dead end for a comedic career.
It's interesting. I'd say I wouldn't say it's a dead end, because people still care about it, and like it's just that everything's so splintered now, where that was the mecca. Now it's like that's still a good hub, but there's guys that are getting bigger now because they don't have the handcuffs. I mean, Shane Gillis is the prime example. It also helped that he got canceled from Saturday Night Live and played it well on the other side of how he handled that helped dictate the course of his future, because if he played it wrong, it might have hurt him more. I mean, for a short period of time, like that's a low. That's a real low, thinking that you're gonna, be on this comedy institution that, you probably grew up watching. And I mean, he's a huge Norm fan. So all those things. And for that to be taken away from you, it hurts, and it's in such a public setting, and it's just that's a lot to go through. But because he played it the way he did, and he's so talented and super funny, now he's bigger than he probably would have been if he had have ran that race and didn't get cut off that show. So you see these guys that are doing it on their own terms without the restrictions that a network TV show puts on you. And it's a totally different race that you can run.
Yeah.
Now, the guys that do that, they're popular, but at a certain stage, you're going to be, you got to go into movies probably to be the next, and how many movie opportunities are there now? You got to be in a fucking Marvel movie now,
Right.
like, or a remake of some horse shit. Like to get movie star, like, I don't know. It's just so much different now. The landscape has changed. So a guy who is on Saturday Night Live now, he's almost like he can't go and do what these other guys are doing with their podcasts and being free and building this uncensored fan base, because you're gonna lose that safety net. You gotta, well, it's one lane or the other. You're either on the industry trough and you're an industry darling and you have to suck that tit and you got to be a good little boy, or you go off on your own on a fucking vision quest. and the tribe won't fuck with you until you have the numbers, until you come back with like a huge kill. And then that's when like all the industry people change their tune. Once you have the numbers, they're all so fake. They love money. Like, let's not bullshit it. Like, if you, like Shane Gillis will probably end up hosting Saturday Night Live.
Yep.
And
I was
it'll
just
be a
about to
whole
say that.
funny thing. Remember when this happened? And but he's gonna get so big that he comes and does, like when Norm got fired from Saturday Night Live. It'll be the same type of thing, and it's because numbers dictate money, and they always cave to that shit.
Oh yeah.
The industry always caves to that. So
yeah, I'm not sure if this is like an industry thing or a consumer kind of influencing the industry thing, but I feel like this generation of, whether it's comedians or comedy fans, I'm not honestly sure which way it goes. We're like siloing comedians into one thing more often, and like kind of typecasting people, where like the idea of somebody like an Adam Sandler coming up now, who is both a killer at sketch comedy and stand-up comedy, is kind of a weird thing to really think about. There's a few people, I feel like Weekend Update is like kind of the middle ground on SNL. So you've got like Che and Jost right now, but to think of like Kenan Thompson just doing stand-up, just stand up instead of like wearing some weird outfit and playing some weird character, is kind of foreign.
But Kenan Thompson came up as like an actor, right? Like he was like a kid's actor, I believe. Wasn't he in Mighty Ducks and like?
Oh shit, I forgot about that.
Good Burger and shit like that. Like he came up. He was like a I don't want to say child actor because he's a bit old. Like he was early teens. In those TV shows, and so he was already kind of a known dude. It's like when they brought in the Brat Pack to be on Saturday Night Live in like the mid '80s. They had Robert Downey Jr., Anthony Michael Hall, which is like so bizarre, really, looking back on it, to think those dudes are on Saturday Night Live. Because I mean, they're good actors, but like that's really all they are. They're not. Most of those comedians on Saturday Night Live have some sort of like basis in writing and acting, right? They create their own characters, whereas like those guys, I feel like they were probably just regular actors. They're just really good actors. But like Kenan Thompson, I always found, I don't know, I never really, I don't know, I don't want his goons to beat the fuck out of me, but Kenan Thompson's never made me fucking laugh. I mean, he seems like a nice guy, but it's not my cup of tea. Good, fuck, what a great career. I wish I had that. But just but when we talk about stand-up, he wasn't a stand-up, but so like a comparison right now of the guys that, like, a guy that does sketch and stand-up, you got Shane Gillis. I mean, he's doing his sketches, actually the combination of his sketches and his stand-up, they went kind of at the same time, because his sketches are so good. The Gillian Keeves ones. And then Ryan Long, do you know Ryan Long?
Yeah.
Ryan Long's one of my buddies from Canada too, and Ryan Long does the sketches, and the sketches propelled him, and now people are finding his stand up, and he's, but again, it was in tandem. Like he had stand up running at the same time because he was a stand up first, and then the sketches help bring new eyeballs to it, I think. Yeah. And so you see those guys. Trevor Wallace does the sketch thing, and he has some fucking funny shit too. I mean, it's great when you see that combo. But I think people like sketch better than stand up.
That's definitely becoming true, especially with like TikTok and that kind of stuff. The like Trevor Wallace types are definitely. But he's actually kind of a good example of like it exists, but it really threw me off the first time I watched like an actual stand-up of his. I was like, I didn't know you could be genuine and like a real person and actually funny. But
I don't really know his stand-up that well, but I think his sketches are funny as fuck. But I haven't watched much of his stand-up to make a call on it. But
yeah, I've watched like a clip or two. Actually, it was just like a few weeks ago. I saw him on a podcast, and then like YouTube recommended like a clip of him. And it was just very weird to see him be himself after seeing him just be all of these, and especially him, because it's not like different characters with different names like a Sandler or an SNL type thing. It's just him acting like the worst human possible constantly. and so it's weird to kind of detach that from him and actually like listen to him have like a real opinion. Like I watched like a full hour and a half long podcast of him like talking like a real human, and it was just a very weird thing. But yeah, I think Shane Gillis is definitely, as I was saying what I was saying, he popped into my head again as like you're wrong because Shane exists. But I still think...
and Tim Dillon does funny fucking sketches too. Like
Tim's fucking great.
Tim's a fucking maniac. Yeah, he's hilarious.
That he just like. So he shocks me every single time that I watch something of his, because he'll either go further than I'm expecting or not as far as I'm expecting. He'll like pull back weirdly and like be super like not edgy for a joke that he could be edgy, and for some reason that's almost funnier than him actually going all the way, because it's like not him normally, and it's like a different type of shock comedy when you have a shock jock that's not doing it. It's like I don't know, it's like reverse psychology. But yeah, there's definitely like there's still people that are doing both, but I feel like just and why I've prefaced it as probably like our fault as consumers more than actually the industry is like as more people become comedy fans, there's less fans of actual comedy and more fans of like just individual people and what they've seen on like TikTok or whatever. And so they're kind of like, all right, you're a TikTok comic. You do crowd work. That's what I watch, and that's what I expect. And like I've even seen plenty of like interviews with like Matt Rife and like those other a couple of others who really got popular off of crowd work. They'll have shows where people are getting mad that they actually have written jokes that aren't crowd work.
Yeah, it's hard, right? Because I think the audience too that they're reaching on these platforms are like very uneducated about what stand-up comedy is, and so when they see you doing crowd work, that's like their introduction. You're the gateway to stand-up for them, and so they think that that's all this is, right? Mm-hmm. So it's really, what's Matt Rife getting? He's getting like teenagers and a bunch of broads. Like I'd like to take the time to thank Matt Rife, because I think a lot of comedians, I see these little fucking dorks chirping Matt Rife. You can tell they're jealous because he's a little sexy boy with pouty lips, and he's pumping those full of fucking, I don't know what you put in your collagen or estrogen. I don't know what the fuck he's got in those things. But Matt Rife is actually a hero to stand-up comedy, because the worst crowd or the worst audience members that you get typically are bachelorette parties. This guy is a one-man fucking bachelorette party going around. So he's the Pied Piper of bachelorette parties. He's sucking them out of every fucking comedy club into his theater. You take those fucking bachelorette parties, Maddie. Thank you so much. We fucking salute you, brother. You are an American and Canadian hero because I'm in Canada. You come to Canada, fucking get him out of my city. You got him, man. Every single miniature penis straw, like just take them all. They're always getting fucked up and interrupting the shows. I feel bad for what he actually has to endure though, because I mean, listen, this guy's a funny comic, and he has the skill set. He's been doing it a long time. He's a pro, and listen. How many people are as good at crowd work as Rife? Not many, man. He's up there. It's so rightfully so. He's gonna pop with that shit, but he's got material, and he does his thing. But like he has to navigate this beast that he created.
Yeah.
Which is, it's a blessing and a curse. You know what I mean? Like to be able to make that much money and sell that many tickets, but also you have this untrained audience of comedy fans. Whereas you see like, people who traditionally have traditional stand-up comics that have a huge fan base that they get comedy. Like Norman's fans that's a normal fucking audience, you know? They get what comedy is. But there's this whole new, because comedy's gotten so much bigger, I think, because of these platforms. You're getting these people who've never been to a comedy show before, and you're the first one that they go to. Like when you go to an Andrew Schultz show, there's a lot of people. It's their first time ever seeing stand-up comedy. I think it's so cool, though, that we're getting these people out to the shows. But, what they see online, it might be a little different. Because you're only getting a snippet of it online.
Yeah,
that's only one moment in a show, and to get attention online, you got to take that one weird moment and put it out there, right? Like that one moment of an hour where something odd happened. That's what people are gonna click on.
Yeah,
they're not gonna, maybe watch something that's like, how would I put it? Just a stand-up bit. I mean, there's a million stand-up bits out there. What's going to make them click that? But if it's like, some old lady got fucking hammered and Matt Rife ripped her and called her a gilf, these idiots are clicking it.
Plus, that's the only stuff that you can really post consistently and keep, like, to play the TikTok game and post as often as you have to post. You need to do crowd work, otherwise you're going to ruin your specials and ruin your shows.
Yeah, if you're not a writing machine where you're just coming up with material that you can burn, like disposable. I mean, if you could technically every week write, couple minutes of current event shit and do it at the live show, record it and put it out, but that's still hard. Like that's taxing, and you don't know if it's going to work. The crowd work stuff is definitely the way to keep that fresh content train rolling without burning what you're going to put on a special, especially the guys like Rife and Norman, like all those dudes that are getting Netflix deals. That's big money.
Yeah,
like your material is worth something. So that's why comics hate when people are filming it and putting it on YouTube. This is my money. Don't fuck with my money.
Right. Yeah, and I think like Normand, I've seen post like I said, he's like my favorite comic, so this is not me shitting on him at all.
Easy, I'm right here. Right here,
but like I've definitely seen a bunch of clips of Mark Normand where he's telling the same joke over and over again, just like slightly differently because it's at a different show, but it's still the same punchline, like 6 or 7 clips in a row. Because I've seen like every piece of content that he's ever posted on the internet. So I'm a little bit of a super fan. So I think that that's a little bit of an exception by itself. Like if you only see one clip or the other, like it's not a big deal, but I'm watching every single thing he posts. So it's I'm listening to the same punchline 6 or 7 different ways. It's always kind of interesting because it's never the same delivery. It's never the same actual joke. But it's like it's the same setup, same punchline, but the middle is always a little bit different. And I kind of find that interesting. But if every comic was doing that, and that's just what TikTok was like, you you were seeing the same joke every other day, that would get really old really quick.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and a guy like Norman, who, you know, you're gonna have super fans, and they're and comics like us, like we're blessed to have super fans that like actually give a fuck and watch all of our shit. But you know, you put out that a couple different sets and you got the same joke in it. Really, you're just trying to acquire new people. Like, not everyone. Someone might watch this one that's never seen you and become a fan, and watch that the other one. Someone could watch the other one and become a fan. So you're just hooking new people, and it really is like a certain point about fan acquisition and not appeasing just your old fans, because you know a guy like that's pretty prolific and just in general. But yeah, it's not everyone. You don't expect everyone to be watching everything, but you do when you put out a special. You could put out a special and like do a whole bunch of old jokes on it and get away with it. Like that's kind of you know cheating a little bit. You could still you could repeat a joke from another thing or whatever, but it's out there. But you know, ultimately you want it to be overall a pretty new product.
Yeah. I remember like old school kind of era of, you know, where it was just like Tonight Show and that kind of stuff. There was definitely a big like thing about not burning material on those shows and whatnot, and you know, trying to like come up with new material that, or trying out new material at something like that. And
well, yeah, I'll give you an example of that. And not like the Tonight Show, like performing on it, but look at a Jay Leno. Jay Leno has been one of the best, considered one of the best stand-up comics by a lot of comedians, and you know, I have no reason to say that he's not. I mean, listen, what you saw him doing on the Tonight Show, that's all disposable, you know, current event jokes that are written by writers and him every night, and he's got to do the show, and he did it well. But his stand-up act, he's never put out a fucking special. He still has these jokes that are still fucking funny today. I bet he's still doing a lot of the same shit that he did back in the day in these casinos and still murdering. Like when he goes and does live stand-up, he still does like a ton of live stand-up apparently. And that's a guy, like a good example of like he never burnt his A game, but he'd go and do it anywhere and kill with like this timeless material for the crowd that comes out to see him, you know. That's evergreen material.
That's an interesting way to do it, because I feel like there's not a whole lot of people that could pull that off.
Yeah, it's weird to be in that type of public eye, but he benefited from being able to do that show with, you know, and having a team of writers and just doing disposable current event stuff that he's always relevant. And then he just kept his like stand-up act like very, you know, private, outside of the live audiences. But that's a product of the old model for sure. For someone like myself, what I try and do, and I don't know how many comics think like that. Like a lot of comics, they say, I got this material, I gotta get it out now on this special because it's not going to be relevant next year. But what I try and do is do a more evergreen special, so the material's funny multiple years from now, and then I'll do like my more current event stuff for online stuff and like promo and, you know, just kind of hyping myself up, like trying to get new fans online and shit. So if I have a current event bit that I think is like hot and it's like the time to do it, I'll record it, put it on social media, and just I'll burn it that way. Whereas I'll save my evergreen stuff for when I do a special. That way my special is funny 3-4 years from now. Like the special Too Soon that you watched, it's actually from 2020 is when I shot it.
Oh, wow.
So it holds up today. There's very little that would let you know that it was actually from then.
Yeah.
It's still super relevant. And Pimp Daddy's very much like that too. There's only a couple things I think on Pimp Daddy. I think I do say it's 2023. There's a couple things where I let on, but the material, I tried to make sure that it's evergreen. I want it to be funny for years to come. When I make a special, I want that to like stand the test of time. And I do think there is like an importance though to being relevant and like, you know, being the voice of what's happening right now. But in the same end, like if that's super crucial, I'll put it out maybe as like a special piece. You know what I mean?
That makes
Like
sense.
I have a thing that I'm putting out on my Patreon. I have a 20-minute set that I just shot. That's like a mini special. I'm putting that on my Patreon. It's coming out probably next month too. So it's just like extra content that people can see, but it's more about what's going on right now. A lot of stuff about Israel, Palestine.
Ooh, fun.
I mean, it's a little bit loaded, but I got jokes. So
So what do you think of the opinion? I've heard this online. I've kind of seen it a little bit subjectively that stand up is getting too like preachy and it's turning more into public speaking than actual stand up comedy.
Okay, what's the context of that? Like, who are they? Like, is there anyone that they're referencing specifically?
I feel
that's
like
preaching.
A good example, and this is just me like subjectively saying, and I'm a big fan of his, but I think like Chappelle's newest special that just came out
Chappelle
was kind of was definitely in that realm. And the
special
one
is
before it, he just dropped one like last week, I think. Like
yeah, well, I
brand
watched
new.
it.
And I mean like there's a big chunk of it's just like him kind of like telling stories about like him and Chris Rock, and there's like very long breaks between actual laughs throughout the special, and I feel like he's not alone in that, but that one's maybe like the better example.
So we're talking about a guy who, how to explain my thoughts on this? So Dave Chappelle is, when he started early. He's a very young comic when he started. I think he was like 16 when he started. So by the time he hit, he was he's not much older. He's like 10 years older than me, which seems crazy because he's been so big for so long. Like my whole career, he's been the big thing,
Yeah.
But when Chappelle's show was the biggest show in the world, and Kill 'Em Softly, and what's the other one? The other one before that, or I don't know if it's before that or right after. Go For What It's Worth, maybe. I don't know. I forget what it was. Not For What It's Worth, but those specials, his first two, not counting the HBO 30-minute, I don't think. But anyway, he had like, he was running a pretty perfect race. We're talking all-timer specials. Then he leaves the show, goes to Africa, and it's this really weird thing where people don't understand it, and it's the water's murky. I get to see Chappelle come back from Africa and do stand-up. He did a couple of his first shows were in Toronto. And I got to be there and watch him do it. It's the greatest stand-up show I've ever seen in my life. Chappelle in his like, I don't want to say in his prime, but in like at the height of Chappelle fever. It's the thing where he's like the cultural zeitgeist this is Dave Chappelle's the guy. And coming back from Africa and no one knows what's going on, he talks about it, and he talks about, someone was it $60 million, 60 million he walked away from, or 70 million. You stack up, imagine someone stacks up $60 million and says, you want $60 million? You'd be like, yeah, but then they take out their cock and put it on top of that $60 million and say, well, then start sucking. Would you suck that dick? No, fuck that. Like, that's what he's basically saying happened. And so like the crowd was going insane, and he was just so good and so fucking funny that that this is a guy who's dealing with some personal, he's struggling like with some, like with who he is to the audience and what he represents to his culture. And I really feel like the tough thing is that he feels a stronger sense of who I think he grapples with who he needs to be to his people also. Is he a spokesperson or is he a fucking comic? Because he's the funniest fucking comic alive, but he also is very, very intelligent and has a lot of important cultural things to say. And he sometimes does it through comedy, and sometimes the message becomes a little bit bigger than the actual stand-up. And so that becomes a little bit murky when he comes back. And things start to change with the landscape of stand-up comedy over that period of time. That's when shit started getting woke. The time that he was like not there, when he was gone, that's when like I started feeling the pushback doing stand-up comedy was around 2012, 2013. That's when it really started. Like everyone started being real gay about stand-up. Everyone in the crowd just like it's like they're afraid that if they laugh they're gonna lose their job too. And then they come in guarded. You have to break their guard. When Chappelle came back, this had been going on a while, and he was kind of like, fuck this, because he's old school and he's the man. So it's like I do feel like he felt like he had a responsibility to comedy and to the comedy fans to be the guy that just says fuck all this, like, and he is, and he did it, and he came back, and he makes the point. If you listen to what he says, I think it's on the Age of Spin, the first special that he came back. This might be the last time that we're allowed to talk reckless, so I'm gonna do it. And I think he felt that's what was going on. And so like Chappelle talking reckless is for all of us. Because he's the one who can face down these people who got their pitchforks out. And I know people say cancel culture isn't real and all this. That's bullshit, because you all you little fucking pussies are on social media going, cancel this person the second, like, so shut the fuck up. You're a fucking liar. Okay? You want Dave Chappelle fucking canceled. Like, cancel culture is you trying to fucking cancel Dave Chappelle. So it's like, just because you fucking failed at it, doesn't mean that the culture doesn't exist of these fucking dweebs that just try and censor people and shut them up. Like, just because he has a different opinion than you. And do I think that Dave Chappelle's material about trans people is fucking wonderful? Actually, I think it's kind of like some of it's his weaker stuff. There's some funny shit there too. I think Dave Chappelle does have better material. I think he got maybe a little more hung up on that because he's maybe not used to that type of pushback. Because Dave Chappelle, everyone fucking loves Dave Chappelle. He's fucking hilarious. Not too many people before that were like saying this guy fucking sucks. And now you have a much more amplified voice criticizing you, and maybe that's something new. But Dave Chappelle is funnier than you and funnier than almost any comedian on the fucking planet. Arguably the best of all time. And he ran the race that he did, I think, for other comics, because he didn't want to see other comics get shut down, and he knew that they weren't going to take away what he had. And it's a lot harder. I don't think people understand when these people talk about cancel culture and comedians and like, oh well, who lost their job. It's not that. It's the comics coming up in the fucking clubs who are getting they get silenced, they get sidelined. It's real easy to dismiss a comic that isn't famous, or like a newer comic that the next Chappelle's won't fucking happen if this type of shit keeps being allowed to spread like a cancer. Because I see the open mics when there's censorship at the top and little cookies given out to people for being woke and being little weenies. When they see that, the gatekeepers at every level start mimicking that. So it's like if there's a comic that's coming out being reckless at an open mic, talking reckless, as Chappelle said in his special, that guy's not getting booked next week at the fucking open mic. He's not getting a spot. They try and they because these people at this gatekeeper level are trying to impress the people at this gatekeeper level because they want to be at that level. So there is this thing that's happening at the clubs. You ask any comic who does dark, dirty comedy in a small city, ask them how fucking fun it is, because it's not fun. I get messages from these comics all the time. Like, what do I do? And it's because they just, the little cliques get together and they don't like that guy, but that guy's killing with the crowd. Usually, I mean, there's edgelords that suck. Like, let's not pretend that there isn't like a whole bunch of
like Dave Smith exists. You know,
but like, let's not pretend there's a whole bunch of like prima donna, or like, not prima donna. So let's not pretend there's a whole bunch of there's not a whole bunch of wannabe edgy comics that like say edgy shit just because they think it's funny, and they suck, and they are offensive because they're not good at it. Like that. That happens, but there are good comics. They're like, you can tell the intent. You can tell the intent if they're trying to write a joke, if there's a structure behind it. But these dudes get silenced in these small cities. It's hard. I'm like, you got to move to the bigger city because there's more room for you. There's a room for everyone there. But you go to in Canada, you go to Vancouver, was a tough one for a bit. I think it's getting a little bit better, but Vancouver was very, very left-leaning PC, and any edgy comic in Vancouver really did get kind of ostracized, and I think it's happening a little bit in Halifax too. I'll say it, like, if you're in a small city, be more open-minded. If you're a comic, like, listen, I don't give a fuck if you're an alt comic and you do wacky, goofy shit. Like there's room for everyone in this race. Everyone has a different style, but I do think that edgy comics do get kind of people back away from them a bit, and in a small scene, when you get backed away from it, you feel it a lot more. So I think that, like, that's where cancel culture, the ripple effect of it gets not dangerous, but to become good at that type of shit, to become what Dave Chappelle is, you have to be able to take risks and fail, understand where the line is, and then how do I come back and not cross the line? How do I play on that line and be funny still? Because if ultimately, if you're a good comic or want to be a good comic, you want to get the laugh. It's not about shocking them; it's about getting the laugh. And shocking is just one little tool. But like, if you can, you're gonna have to cross the line. Then you come back. Okay, this will be funnier. This is how I get the laugh. And if you can't do that, if you don't have that room to breathe and grow, and that supportive like network on the open mic level, like open mic, you can't fail at an open mic. You're getting canceled there. Like, what the fuck is this? No one became a sniper without being a loose cannon first. And that's it. And then after that, when you become a sniper, that's when you get to fucking be a loose cannon again. That's what Chappelle's in his loose cannon again stage. And that's what we're seeing. And we're very, very fortunate as comedy fans to get to see the body of work that Chappelle's put out over the last 6 years. I mean, we didn't get anything for a long time. And now this guy's so prolific. He's putting out so much stuff. But maybe there's some stuff that's like a little bit, it's a little bit more underdeveloped than, you can tell when he puts out a perfect special. I thought The Age of Spin was perfect. I thought he had there's probably 3 perfect specials out of like 6 or 7, like, and then the other ones are good still. There's maybe a couple that aren't my favorite, but there's good stuff in all of them. We're lucky kind of that we got to see like the warts and all of Chappelle's body of work, because this is a fucking master at comedy. So but the new one, that Norm Macdonald bit that he does at the start, where he talks about Jim Carrey and Man of the Moon, that's a magnificent piece of it's masterful comedy. Watch it, but then go back and watch it again and see what he says and what he, like, his setup. Watch his setup and what fucking he says to like almost like trick you, but also set up that joke. It's beautiful. It's unbelievable.
He is definitely the GOAT for sure. And
sorry I went off on a whole tirade there, but I've been thinking about this. I've been thinking about the Chappelle thing. I'm a huge fan, and again, it's it's cool to me to see a guy put himself out there like that. Like Chappelle could have hoarded that material and only done, perfect little specials. He kind of just said fuck it and just let it fly
Yeah.
for all of us.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. And I'm definitely I definitely agree with what you're saying about like the cancel culture. Even if the person that's attempted to be canceled, it doesn't work, it still has like a ripple effect down. And there's kind of that like there's guilt by association attached to getting canceled now. So like the clubs have to genuinely be worried, because if they put somebody up on an open mic night that then gets canceled, it's, especially on an open mic night, it's most likely going to be the club that's actually getting the brunt of that, because nobody knows who the fuck you can't cancel somebody who's only got 200 followers on Twitter. It just doesn't really work. So the mob will go after the club that's got at least a couple thousand, and like, why the fuck would you put this person up there?
You should see Yuck Yuck's Yelp reviews from time.
Oh, shit, did I lose you? Come on. There we go. All right.
Yeah, we're back. Someone tried to cancel me. Yeah,
fucking NSA. But yeah, there's definitely like we were saying, that like ripple effect down into the lower levels of things, and that's kind of across the board. That's not just a comedy thing, where it's just, the more you say this person up here can't do that thing, the people who are trying to become that person are going to get discouraged.
Yeah. I remember it was like when I first started, it was when you do an edgy bit or whatever, and people, the mindset was, well, you're not Chris Rock. Chris Rock can do that because he's great at it, but you can't. Say, how the fuck did Chris Rock get great at that?
Mm-hmm.
Because at one point he was like me, and he was taking a risk and trying. And these people are all in the business of no risk, but they want all the reward. But the comics are all in the business of risk, and that's how we become good at what we do. And when the audience can appreciate the risk that we take,
Mm-hmm.
that's when you get really, kind of knighted as a comic. When the fans on a larger level start to understand, hey, this guy's going to the wall for us here, saying some wild shit and entertaining us,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Willing to fucking put yourself out there and go and say whatever it takes to get the laugh. That should count for something. But yeah, for younger comics, I feel like they've felt the brunt of the PC movement and the cancel culture movement. Especially, I mean, like, I can only really speak for the cities that I've like performed in it a lot. So when I talk about Vancouver, I just know I've been to Vancouver. I love a bunch of comics there, but I've been there and I know what a lot of the comics that also live there went through. And in Toronto, I saw it happening. There was a black cloud hanging over Toronto for quite a few years.
Mm-hmm.
It got very PC there, and it was, we were holding it down during those dark years. But there's a handful of comics that really didn't give a fuck. I mean, I'm fortunate I don't live in the city. I don't have to be around the politics and being shunned for doing an act that these people don't align with politically. I get to come in, do my show, kill with the crowd, and fuck off.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But
Yeah.
you would see these comics, and it's like, oh, you used to kind of be a little bit edgy and funny when you started, but now you're going for these little polite golf claps, reading from the Toronto Comedy Handbook of what you're supposed to say. And it's like, oh, this is really interesting. Like, what the fuck is going on? Everyone turned into the Stepford Wives in comedy. And That's not what this is about. I guarantee you, if you ask every comedian what they got when they first started comedy, young comedians, what did you get into comedy for? So you go and say whatever the fuck you want on stage and make your friends laugh. Well, guess what? None of your fucking friends are laughing right now, and you're not saying what you wish you could say. You're afraid that you might lose this or might lose that. Go back to why you wanted to get in this, and that's what's going to connect with the audiences. And that's how I feel, because the audiences should be like your friends, you know?
I feel like a big chunk of what comedy is to people is like that person saying what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And making it funny, and getting away with it. You know, I feel like, obviously this isn't true of every comedy fan or every comedian, but I feel like a big like crux of the thing is that like idea of like bringing your wife to a show and then getting to be like, see, when he's making a bunch of like fucking anti-woman shows, you know, like go take her to a Bill Burr show and be like, see, I could be this guy, I could scream at you like this, or I could like, you know, just be me and like take you to a Bill Burr show. I feel like there's always just like that little bit, and you know, there's there's always been like the kind of like racial stereotype jokes that are a kind of a crux of comedy, and like they're kind of the only people that for a long time, if you weren't on stage with a microphone, you couldn't say shit like that. But if you're on stage with a microphone, you can still say that like Chinese people are bad drivers and get a laugh out of it because you said it in a funny way, and that it's somehow okay. But like, you know, you're not allowed to say that just like out and about amongst your friends anymore.
Yeah, well, you definitely have to make that originally, like you have to make it an original joke and structure it. Like there's guys that come out and like try that shit and bomb too, right?
Oh, yeah.
So if you know, and there isn't carte blanche to do that in comedy. It's just it has to be funny, and so no matter what you can definitely make a stereotype funny. You just have to be good at it, and there's still going to be people that hate it, but you have to be willing to try. I think you're more protected as long as there's as long as there's a clear attempt for it to be like, you can tell the intention was that this is to be funny, let alone that this is in the context and forum of a stand-up comedy show.
Yeah,
you know, you can tell when someone's just being racist. Like when Michael Richards snaps, you know that he's not trying to be funny anymore. His intention is like pure hurt someone because of, and by using racism as the vehicle to hurt them. Whereas, you know, they're comedians that do jokes that are racial, that like some people will say that they're racist, but they're probably more racial is the word I would say.
Yeah.
And you just have to look at the context and understand, you know, the difference between a performance and real life. And I think there is, as long as the intent is to be funny, you know, jokes can live and die, but the intent should always be protected.
Yeah.
You know, you should always be able to try to be funny. And Patrice O'Neill said it well, is that like all jokes are born from the same place. You know, this joke might be super offensive, but you know, it came from a place of trying to make you laugh. The intention was to be funny. So as long as the intention is to be funny, I don't think anything should be censored. But it is up to the audience, and each audience is different. And, you know, that's totally their right to not like it and not laugh. And yeah, you can have a fucking problem with it, but to try and take someone's livelihood, that's some weak ass shit, dude.
Yeah. Agreed. And yeah, I think like you have to give comics like a little bit of like some breathing room on that, because I think like when the whole like woke PC shit like really started cracking down, it really became any sort of vocalizing pattern recognition was bad, because if it has anything to do with a group of people, whether it's like, you know, you could say like guys with beards are mean or something, you know, like any type of thing is even if it's not like one of the protected groups, especially in like the early 2010s, there was kind of that crackdown on on all of it. Like you can't say anything about any specific group of people, which kind of like you can't do comedy without doing that. You have to pattern recognize, segregate a little bit, and make a joke. It's very difficult to not talk about like the difference between men and women or different races or something and actually still have a full act.
I'll say this is it's like this. When you come into a comedy club, it's almost like there's like this unwritten agreement that everything is on the table to be made fun of. And making fun of everyone's differences is what unites us and brings us together. So if you take your thing that you are and you make it off limits, pretty much you're rejecting the group that's come in, and this is what the experience is, right? So you're rejecting that automatically if you're off limits, and you're saying you're better than everyone else in there. You're more sacred than them, and that's not true. So for comedians to not make fun of that is actually, to me, to avoid making a trans joke if there's a trans person, or if there's a person in a wheelchair, to ignore those people and not and that's the comedian not being inclusive. And for the people, or for someone to think that I'm this, you can't make fun of this, I'm off limits, that's you not being inclusive. And the idea of a comedy club is everyone getting together to, celebrate our differences through laughter and making fun of it. And ultimately, what's the point if you can't fucking laugh at yourself? You're going to be a pretty miserable cunt. And how would you go through life like that? That fucking sucks.
Yeah.
That would suck. And yes, there are marginalized groups, and they do have it harder than other people. And we recognize that. And it's like, but we can joke about that. Like you don't think the comedian
Why would you
understands
marginalize them in comedy as well? Like,
but
they're already
but
marginalized everywhere else. Like,
but do you think that the comedian doesn't understand that there's like that dynamic, like that exists? Like the comedian's probably playing off of that.
Yeah.
But it's not to hurt you. It's to make everyone like laugh at how overall, we treat this whole situation. I mean, listen, everyone should be fucking equal. And if they aren't in real life, when you come into the comedy club, to me, that's the place that you are.
Yeah.
If it's my show, I think of you as an equal because you paid the same fucking amount of money as all the other suckers to see me.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that there's nothing more like ableist or racist or sexist or whatever ist than to say that X group of people can't handle being made fun of.
Yeah, that's the most arrogant thing to speak on behalf of a group of other people that didn't ask you to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you're not a lawyer.
Right. Like, I think Matt Rife has a really good bit in, I don't think it was his last special. It was the one
lost me
before
there.
That.
Just kidding. You lost me there on the Matt Rife had a really good bit.
But
I'm kidding.
He did I love Matt Rife. It's kind of a bit that plays into my question about like preachy comedy, but he goes on this whole thing about like making jokes about people with disabilities. And like one of the punchlines is like, hey, don't boo, they can stand up for themselves. People in wheelchairs can stand up for themselves. And he's you can see there's a bunch of these comics out there that make an intention of doing there's like the couple of comics with like Tourette's that like make kind of a big deal about it, and then you see like a bunch of people with Tourette's are going to their shows and now going to like other comedy shows, and like there's a huge
the Tourette's, is that the fuck ass comedy tour? Or is it the shit fuck comedy tour? I love those guys.
Great. That would be great to just do like an entire show that's just comics with Tourette's. It's just like the most awful.
That would be great.
Shit.
I mean, I'd fucking jack off to it.
But yeah, those marginalized groups for the most part come out super fucking loud in defense of any comic that's being canceled. Like even Chappelle had just a gigantic wave of trans support when he was first getting like, I mean, it definitely like counter it, like the negative outweighed the positive on that one, but there's been there's been plenty of other examples of people who are like people are trying to cancel someone for making like a wheelchair joke or a racial joke or something like that, and it's like, no, you can make fun of us. Like, people haven't been making
like
Asian
cool
jokes
trans
in a while.
people
This is
never get
nice.
interviewed. There's some cool fucking trans people that I met. They never get the fucking interview.
Yeah, I've had a few on the show that I like to think are pretty cool, but I mean, it's the squeakiest wheel gets the grease kind of a thing of, like, you know, it's the
You
shitty...
talking? Are you being ableist?
It's the shitty, most obnoxious people that are whining the most that are the ones that get
people in wheelchairs greasy. Cancel this, man.
Oh my god. So before I let you go, tell people where they can find Too Soon, where they can find the next one coming out, where they can get tickets to your shows.
Yeah. So you can check out Too Soon. It's on YouTube. Tyler Morrison, Too Soon. It's a full special. It's available there. And I also have like a mini special on there. It's called Burn the Village, so you can check that out too. But YouTube, go over there, subscribe, leave me a comment, tell me I'm a piece of shit, whatever you guys say. And then if you really like my stand-up, then you can go and you can get all my stand-up specials. I have about, I think, 6 on my Patreon, patreon.com/Tyler Morrison. I'm putting out new content all the time, but also from like my archives of comedy and roasts. I've been on a bunch of different celebrity roast of Ron Jeremy, roast of Ric Flair, all these different things. So I try and keep that populated with a lot of new stuff. My new special, Pimp Daddy, that's coming out this month. I'm putting that out on YouTube. You can get early access to it though on the Patreon. That's you'll get to see that before it hits YouTube if you subscribe to the Patreon. And follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, all that shit. I guess it's called X now, which is a little gay. But
yeah, I refuse to call it that. Never.
I gotta call it Twitter. I mean, yeah. So, but yeah, I'm on all the social media. But yeah, definitely hit up my YouTube channel and my website, tylermorrison.ca. Will have all my tour dates that are coming up in 2024. They're going to be coming out soon. Mostly Canadian stuff right now, but I will be trying to get to America. We're working on it. We're just figuring out where I'm hitting. So
hell yeah, guys, you heard him. Go click all the links in the description. Follow him on all the socials. His website and his YouTube should also both be in there. Definitely go check out those. Too Soon was fucking great. Cannot suggest that one enough. But before you click any of those, make sure to click the like button at the bottom of this video and share it to a bunch of people. Tell them you found a great comic that you want to tell them about and make them watch this first. I don't know why this isn't as funny as the stand-up specials, but I'd appreciate the views. So send them here. And then definitely come on back. Next week, we have my good friend Stacia Wilson coming back on the show to talk about her new project, Curio. And then Heidi Briones after that, followed by Spike Cohen. So it's going to be a good month here on the show. So definitely click that subscribe button so you make sure that you don't miss a single episode. And Tyler, thank you so much for coming on. This was absolutely fantastic, dude. You're fucking hilarious.
Hey, no, I appreciate you having me on. And I'll say this: you brought up Chappelle and the preachy stuff, and then I feel like I got really preachy about that. That was kind of weak. That was bullshit.
I feel like I definitely touched a nerve there, but like, no, I'm a huge Chappelle fan. I just I feel like
passionate.
I feel like there's like this kind of danger zone in my head of where like Carlin went late in his career, of like, I personally, as like a hardcore libertarian, anarchist, political activist, love Carlin's late stuff because he was preaching my shit.
Me too.
But it really got unfunny towards the end, and there was like 6 laughs in an entire hour special. And so in my head, I'm like watching a bunch of my favorite comics as they like go towards that, and I'm like, please don't do that. Please find a way to come back and still be funny, which it might be just super selfish on my part, that like I want them to continue making the content that I like instead of evolving as a person.
You know what it is? You know what it is at a certain stage when you get famous, I think that like it becomes a situation where it's like you're addressing the people from the mountaintop when you should just be a man of the people. Being a man of the people is what got you to the fucking mountaintop.
Right.
Not being able to differentiate between talking down to them and talking for them. That's the fine line, and it's really easy to lose. And I think that, you know, it gets murky at a certain level. So it's hard to manage, right? But
yeah. At risk of sounding like a huge hipster, it's something that I have a problem with in music too, where it's like I love a band because they write a bunch of super relatable stuff, and then they become famous, and now they're doing like an arena tour, and it's like, you don't have any idea what my life is like. Like when we were both in college and you were writing songs about college and getting 10,000 listens, you know, we could relate because you were not famous. Like
it's like any relationship, you sometimes outgrow each other, right? Like it's go in different directions, and that's what happens. You know, these guys get a bunch of fucking money, and they're, you know, driving around in fucking Lamborghinis getting blowjobs. Where's my fucking Lambo, dude?
Right.
Where's my fucking blowjob?
Oh man. Well, with that,
sucked off in a Toyota Corolla.
That is, hey, I mean, at least you have a Toyota Corolla. That's a decent car. I've had much shittier, you know.
You didn't ask who was sucking me off.
It was Mark Norman.
Yeah,
we all already knew. All right. With that, Tyler, thanks again for coming on. Guys, thanks so much for watching. We'll catch you back here next time. Until then, keep up the fight.
Hey, thank you.